Long before The Conjuring, last rites hit theaters, the Smurl family lived it for real.
My name is Lorraine Warren. My husband Ed and myself were called by Janet Smurl to this home that we are now in.
Being made afraid to live is what it has come down to.
On January 17th, we visited this home for the very first time, interviewed the families concerning the phenomena that was taking place to them. The phenomena began quite a while ago, but began to climax at this time. We are in their home again today on February 14th, 1986.
Their haunting was so disturbing, some parts were too dark even for the movie. Now, let's step into one of America's darkest horror cases.
In 1986, Jack and Janet Smurl went public with a story of demons invading their West Pittston home.
Being made afraid to live is what it has come down to.
Jack Smurl told of the living nightmare, one that included levitations, screams in the night, his kids and dogs thrown around by ghouls, and a violent ghost that raped him.
Pick the mattress up and drop it, but very rapidly, like this. Like that. Like it looks like a carpet, just like a carpet, like you would, a housewife would have a carpet and shaking it out.
You go to bed waiting, listening to make sure that the children will not be hurt.
This pair tried to rid evil spirits with the presence of God. After a night in the Smurl home, their reaction?
It's very powerful. It's invisible. I don't care if you want to call it a devil or a ghost or a demon. There's something in this home which has the intelligence to inflict physical and psychological harm upon this family.
It is still considered one of the most contentious cases in paranormal history, as well as the case that Ed and Lorraine Warren were unable to solve. Sometime in the early 1980s, a 37-year-old housewife named Janet Smurl was alone in her basement, loading the machine with her family's soiled clothes. Her 4 children were all at school, and her husband Jack was at work. Janet was lost in contemplation as she loaded the washing machine and pressed the start button, and for a brief minute, she believed she had been called. She paused, and the washing machine began to speed up. Janet shook her head, plainly mistaken, and collected the basket before turning to leave. Before she could respond, she heard it again. Janet froze on the spot. There was no denying it this time. She'd heard someone shout her name, a female voice. There was nobody else in there. The voice muttered again, but this time from behind her. The voice would puncture the air a couple more times before she could reach the steps. "What do you want?" she exclaimed. Dawn and Here were the couple's first 2 daughters. Janet left employment to be a full-time mother, and the pair was especially close to Jack's parents, John and Mary Smurl, with whom they shared a home. The events, as in so many of similar situations, began as little incidents.
We are in their home again today on February 14th, 1986. The very first thing that happened in this home happened to you, I believe, Janet. That's correct.
That was the night of Heather's confirmation. That was on April the 29th, 1985. Heather and Shannon and myself were in the kitchen, and I was pinning her collar onto her communion or her confirmation robe. And we have a 4-foot by 2-foot ceiling light, and it came without no warning at all. In a matter of a split second, it came crashing down onto the kitchen table. And it wasn't like a light that had broken naturally. It just came crashing down. And it gouged Shannon on the forehead, and it gouged a mark onto the refrigerator. And this was about a half an hour before we went to church.
Okay, now when was it, Janet, that you were down in the basement?
The very next day after the confirmation, I was down in the basement doing clothes. I have my washer and dryer down there. And I had turned away from the washer. I was just getting ready to come upstairs to the kitchen. And I heard this female voice. And she said, Janet, very clear. And I thought it was my sister. I said, I'll be right up. Well, when I got to the top of the steps, of course, there was no one there. And I was alone in the house. The front door was locked. There was no way that anybody could have gotten into the tub.
All right. Okay, now also, Janet, I remember you relating to us about coming up from doing the laundry and a pole lamp. You don't have that pole lamp anymore.
No, it's not a pole. Well, it's a table lamp. There it is right there.
All right.
Over in the corner. When the children went out to school and it brightened up in the room, so I turned the light out. I went upstairs to make the bed and collect the laundry. And when I came down, the lamp was on again. And I stopped and I thought, didn't I turn that light out? So I turned the light off again. I went into the kitchen and did the dishes. And I was going down to do the laundry and I came up and the light was on again. This happened about 4 or 5 times within an hour.
Jack and Janet had nearly accepted the fact that there was something other than themselves in their home. It had been years, and while it could be creepy at times, it was generally harmless. Then one night,
one in particular, where you heard this howl coming from the dog, and the dog was sleeping right next to you on the floor. You put your hand on top of the animal, and you realized that it was not coming out of your dog at all. Relate that experience, Jack, as it occurred to you in the bedroom.
Okay, one night we were laying in bed. We weren't sleeping as yet, and Simon started to howl. And it wasn't like a normal howl, okay? It was like something I would describe from the graveyard type. Very hair-raising type howling, and it lasted for a long time, over a minute, okay? And what I tried to do first was I tried to take my hand off of the bed to pet Simon, and something was holding my hand back, and I couldn't move it. It was
something
just
invisible, though.
right, and I couldn't move my hand, and so I kept trying to push it forward, but I couldn't do it. So I pulled it the opposite way, and it finally let go. Then I put my hand on Simon, and the howling continued all this time. I put my hand on Simon, and Simon was fast asleep. He was laying on his side with all 4 legs, on the, like on his side, fast asleep, very unaware of what was going on.
Certainly was not coming from the animal.
No, and no part of his body was moving at all. I had my hand right on his stomach, towards his shoulders, and there was no movement in Simon whatsoever.
By the time 1983 arrived, the family were met by a phenomena that would be consistently appearing throughout their remaining years in the home. A foul smell would appear and spread through the house, but they could never find the source for it. Around this time, John and Mary were becoming concerned about their son and his wife. They began to hear arguments, clear as day through the walls.
The biggest problem we had in relationship to that, causing the problem between the families, the only problem we had that we can recall was my aunt was staying over my mother's for a couple of years because she was, trying to get an apartment over here at the high rise for elderly people. Okay, and we noticed in the summertime that my mother, my aunt, were talking to Janet and I. So this
They weren't talking with
they weren't talking to us at all. They were ignoring us. So I told Janet, I said, Janet, we can't let this thing go on any longer. I said, you got to confront my mother and find out what's going on. So she went over to my mother's one day and she talked to my mother. She says, Mom, why are you mad at us? And my mother said, well, she said, you should ask us. She said, you and Jack had such a terrible argument a couple of weeks ago, and the foul language you were using. She said, I never heard of such a thing, and I never knew that you two were capable of ever having an argument like that. And Janet and I looked at each other, and of course we didn't have no argument like that, and we don't use that kind of language, and it never happened. But yet her and my aunt
both heard
it clearly coming from our house, and we never had an argument. As a matter of fact, we had probably even had a tiff in 6 months.
One summer evening in 1985, Janet was abruptly grabbed from the bed by an invisible force.
What other incidents, Janet, can you think of?
Well, I have been pulled out of bed.
Oh, yeah. Master bedroom is where a good deal of the phenomena has occurred. Where Janet, sleeping on this side of the bed, has been pulled out by her legs.
However, Jack and Janet were not the only ones who were suffering. Mary and John continued to witness strange phenomena around their half of the duplex.
Grandma was washing, and she felt that she had a towel around her, that she was being pushed
Into the
towards the tub, and she has the safety bars, and she said she was holding on to the safety bar
it was that frightening.
because she really thought she was going to go into the tub.
Now, your mother on the other side also was explaining to us about seeing something she described as like a small black animal.
The first time that she saw this thing, she was watching television, and she said all of a sudden, this black animal ran right past her to the corner of a love seat that she had in her living room. And she said, like it ran under or into the couch. But she said, there's no way it could go under the couch because there is not enough room. She said all she could see is the back end of that. It had no tail, and she couldn't see the face or a head.
Janet began researching as much as she could, consuming book after book on the paranormal in an attempt to figure out what was going on and how to deal with it. Priests who were friends of the family visited the house twice and blessed it. Each time this occurred, the activity was temporarily subdued, but the energy returned with a vengeance. Janet's buddy referred her to a university professor who was interested in the paranormal. His interest in the subject was entirely academic, and that while he couldn't provide her with a solution, he had met 2 others who might. That's when he gave Janet the phone number for Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren are a married pair who may be the most well-known paranormal investigators of all time. At this point, the Warrens claimed to have investigated more than 3,000 paranormal cases around the world. The Warrens sat at the kitchen table with Janet and Jack, drinking coffee and starting the interview. The couple stated that they felt scared as they moved about the house.
Being made afraid to live is what it has come down to.
Lorraine informed the Smurls that she had detected 4 presences in their home. She described one as an elderly woman who appeared disoriented and probably suffering from dementia before dying. She appeared to be harmless. Lorraine described the second spirit as mad and angry. It belonged to a younger woman. The third was a male. Lorraine knew he had a mustache and was capable of violence, but not much else. The fourth was not a ghost at all. It was a demon that appeared to be capable of commanding the other spirits. It had most likely been on the property for decades, but had been reawakened by the Smurl family. This demon would feed off the family like they were batteries. The Warrens would reportedly spend months investigating the residence, accumulating photographic and recorded evidence. The Warrens' major goal was to get the local church involved and have an exorcism performed on the property. It was evident that the church was not taking the Smurl situation seriously. They didn't want to get involved in a publicity event like that. At this point, incidents were happening every single day, but it took on a whole darker level on the evening of June 21st.
Jack Smurl told of the living nightmare, one that included levitations, screams in the night, his kids and dogs thrown around by ghouls, and a violent ghost that raped him.
Jack, who had fallen back asleep in bed, was forcefully shaken awake. He looked about his room in a panic, but nothing appeared to be wrong. Jack became aware of the woman's presence only after she had begun to climb onto the bed. When Jack crawled up his bed, he noticed an old woman's face and a much younger woman's physique. Her eyes were bright red, the inside of her mouth was green, and she had some missing teeth. The few teeth she did have were lengthy and characterized by Jack as vampire-like. She climbed on top of Jack, who had already realized he was paralyzed. He was conscious, but he had no control over his situation. Jack couldn't feel anything below his neck, but he noticed this creature had gotten on top and begun to have intercourse with him. The creature used Jack while staring at him and grinned with her twisted, crooked smile. When she was finished, she just retired to the darkness of the bedroom's corners and disappeared. Jack stripped naked and washed himself in the shower till his skin almost bled. Jack told Janet everything, and his wife burst into tears, scared at the shocking escalation. With the local Catholic Church refusing to assist, the family eventually chose to go public with their experience. A plan was devised by the Warrens and the Smurl family. They had tried numerous times to convince the church to take their cause seriously. The Smurls couldn't leave their house without being pursued by the media and the public. However, if they remained inside, they would be tortured indefinitely by the ghosts within. This seems like a good opportunity to discuss some of the more skeptical perspectives on this case. As the press continued to cover the Smurls' tale, public opinion began to turn against them. Rumors of a book contract and a movie began to surface, leading people to believe they were only doing this for fame and money. After some of the media attention dwindled, the Warrens devised the notion of having a mass exorcism, with several prayer groups focusing their energy on clearing the home of whatever was inside it. This was when the Scranton Diocese finally intervened, and it appeared to work until just 2 weeks before Christmas, Jack found himself alone in his living room. He turned off the television and was going to go to bed when he noticed it again. The family was eventually able to put themselves in a financial position to move, putting the sad memories of the house on Chase Street behind them. Karen Smurl, the youngest of the children, has now grown up, but the events of her childhood have definitely lingered with her, since she has become a paranormal investigator herself. The Smurl family lived through one of the most relentless hauntings in American history. Their suffering became the foundation for The Conjuring, Last Rites, but even that film couldn't capture the full horror of what happened inside their home. Subscribe for more true stories of the paranormal and tell me in the comments, which haunting should I uncover next? Now, face the cursed doll that terrified even the Warrens, Annabelle.